I'm always early for these things.
Sorry, wait a moment.
Hey, I remember that time that we did an intro to our show and then forgot to record it?
What?
Are you putting aloe vera gel on? What is that?
It's hand cream. Okay, this is. Can you talk to somebody that's like invents things? Because I need, with all the hand sanitizer, I need there to be a hand sanitizer lotion all in one.
They have those. They gotta have those. No one's done that?
Are you telling me that I have been missing out for the past year, that this is a thing and I didn't know?
Did we say welcome to the show? Welcome to Everything is Content.
Oh, wait, hang on. Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. Okay, let's skip that and go to welcome to the show.
Welcome.
This is just Erin. I think she's above me, but I don't know. This is just Erin. And we are about to have the most amazing conversation with a very good screenwriter. Yes.
One of the cool things about our guest today, who is my friend, super bragging about it, is that we did something different that Julie and I never actually do. And that is, we asked him to choose our movie this week. Did we not?
Yes.
I'm talking in a British accent now, which is horrible.
I haven't seen the British accent, but yes, we got a cool pick from our guest, and it made it kind of fun because this was a movie neither of us had heard of or seen, called Enchanted April.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So prior to getting into that, do you want to update our audience as to how you've been lately?
Yeah. I have a little side story, a very brief one on I got COVID. So I'm in the club now of, what is it, 14 million people I think now have had it and recovered, which when you think about it, is actually quite a lot. When I got called with a positive test, it felt very sad and lonely and isolating, but then I realized how many more there are out there like me. And actually my entire family, we came down with it on Christmas Day, and it was a little extra present. We got to quarantine for 10 days after symptoms appear. And we don't know how we got it, which is probably the kind of scary spot, because we've been, not socializing like we normally would. We've been wearing masks. We've been following all the protocols, but we don't know anyone who's had COVID or in that time frame. And my daughter goes to high school, but there was nothing from there. In fact, my youngest daughter does. She was the last one to contract it, so we probably actually gave it to her. So it's been an interesting go. And to the experience was, it was pretty intense flu, very, very achy. We each had different symptoms. Not everything lines up exactly. Everyone sort of gets their own variation of the symptoms. Lost my sense of taste and smell, which is typical, and was super, super, that
would be the worst.
It is the worst. I have a very actually sensitive sense of smell and taste, so to lose that it was like a kind of blindness, really. And I didn't even realize how much I just sense in the day and how much I enjoy food and taste of food. And when you add salt to food, when you can taste, it tastes really good. When you add salt to food and you can't taste, it just feels bland, but you can still sense the saltiness. And a great way to go on a diet, I suppose, because eating isn't fun. I did eat an onion though, and that just as an experiment, if you lose your sense of taste and smell, why don't you try the things that you normally wouldn't try that are safe to do?
That's you. It's like, let's try it. Eat an onion.
There's some parameters to that, but I was like, why not? We'll try the onion, and it actually is so delicious when you can't taste it, because it's so crisp and juicy. It's just like so much water in your mouth, and you're just chewing it and crunching it. So it's a fun sensory experience when you're not suffering the pain of the flavor. We These are my tips.
Is my face showing? Is my face? Am I doing that?
I feel like I should shut up now. But
Did your? Okay, I apologize for interrupting on this one, but I'm curious. Digestively, did you feel the onion that you ate? Because I'm thinking, like, hey, I could eat a ghost onion, or no, what do they call it? Like the ghost peppers? Those really like the.
no,
But like,
I can try that. No, that seems like a bad idea because you could get in your eye or something, right?
that's what I'm thinking.
No, it wasn't the whole onion. It was just some of the onion to get a gist of it. No, it didn't cause any digestive issues afterwards. But I like that you went to ghost pepper. I should have recorded that and been all hardcore, like I can eat really hot things, but my face probably would have deceived me.
I think you would have hurt. I think it would have been bad.
I think it would have hurt, yeah. Do you know anyone who's had COVID? Like, is it anyone?
Yeah, you're like, I think after knowing you, I think now I'm in the double digits of people that I know.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, so many. Vancouver, New York. My cousin had it.
And?
She's fine. She was in the hospital.
Oh, whoa.
Wow. Yeah.
But she got a smell back or taste of any long term?
She's got some blood pressure issues and some breathing issues.
Yeah.
Which is not awesome. But she's doing okay. I mean, like, she's back home and her husband got it, but their kids who were older thankfully did not, because they separated at just the right time. But and with her, it was her blood pressure dropped so quickly.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know. Everybody I hear just has different stories about it. So thankfully, me avoiding people as I do has paid off, because
you've been fine, even though
I've been okay. Like, I'm like knocking on every piece of wood that I can, because I don't want it. I don't want it. And that's one of my fears, is not having the taste like you did.
I'm very curious as far as content goes to see what our like TV programming, movies and stuff are going to be like in the next couple of years, and how many are going to, there may be, obviously there'll be some that talk about the pandemic, but are there going to be some that are just things being filmed, but during the time, like the setting of the pandemic, so people in the background are all in masks, but the story isn't about, the pandemic, it's just happening during this time, or we don't really know where the future is going to be. So it's sort of hard to shoot something that's happening right now that isn't happening during a pandemic. Do you know what I mean? I'm really curious about how this is going to change some of our storytelling, given what's been going on and the uncertainty of where we're going to end up.
I completely agree. Is it going to change your storytelling? Like, are you going to write about it? Or
yeah, actually, I did. I played around with my script, my Drone Cat script, and had the kids, because it's set with these kids going to an unplugged camp in the woods. I was like, that would be a thing that you could do if you wanted to get away from, the chaos of what's going on. Another reason that parents could send. I'm like, or it could just be post-pandemic where they were still being cautious, but there's a sense of that. Because if it's contemporary, even if the pandemic ends, there's always going to be that feeling, right? So I did, I played with the script just to see what that felt like to write it in, but it still feels a little awkward because there's nothing concrete, you know what I mean? It's not, it's also new to really know how to write about it and how to do it without trying to write about it. But I think it's going to have to come into a lot of things. It's just, is it going to seem overdone really fast, or are we all going to be wearing masks for the next 20 years anyway? So maybe
I kind of want to wear a mask for the next 20 years.
So it will affect your writing, yes.
It causes like a certain level of anonymity that I enjoy. So let's talk about our movie. Why don't you introduce it briefly, because you're so good at that.
One last question, Erin. Has it entered any of the writing that you're doing right now? Have you did any pandemic related things in any of the writing that you're currently working on?
Zero, because I don't like it. I have enough pandemic. I have my friends like you that are having onions to survive, and I have, other people that are ending up in the hospital, and yeah, I'm not down with it. So no, for me, I've avoided it like COVID.
Oh my God, how have I not heard that joke before? I have to play.
You're so funny, that Erin.
are funny. Okay, let's talk about this amazing movie. I'm just pulling up the deets on it. So for people who haven't seen it before, Enchanted April, it's a 1991 drama comedy. It's directed by Mike Newell, who did a bunch of the Harry Potter movies. He did Four Weddings and a Funeral. He did a bunch of other like romantic comedies. He's got quite a huge range. I think he's in like 70 films. And it was based on a book, and it follows the lives of 4 women who are English. 2 of them, and it's set in the 20s, and so 2 of them are sort of disenchanted with their relationships and marriages, and they just want to get away. They don't really know each other. They put an ad out. 2 other women join them, and they let a castle in Italy, in Portofino, actually, for a month, the month of April. And this story follows sort of what that's like for them. And the 3rd woman that comes is a wealthy socialite who's used to being the center of attention. One of the women is sort of a dowdy housewife whose husband finds her boring. Another one, is struggling with her relationship and just, finding a place for herself. And then it also stars, the 4th lady is sort of it's Joan Plowright, Dame Joan Plowright, who is amazing in it, very similar to Judi Dench and Maggie Smith. They're all friends, so they all hang out and have tea. They have to go to Italy together.
Do they really?
And there's a movie about them, actually. They're quite good friends. She was married to Laurence Olivier, Sir Laurence Olivier, and she's amazing. She's a definite anchor to the show, and she just sort of plays the snippety one who's judging everyone. There's my English accent. And and then you get to see there's some husbands involved and a little bit of romance, and there's some other aspects to it. So let's play a clip from it just to introduce the film.
Excuse me, we've come about renting the castle in Italy.
Now, here are all the details.
It seems so wonderful and such a miserable day. Perhaps that's why it seems so wonderful.
I've been invited by a friend to spend April in Italy.
What? Just tell you can't go. It's absolutely out of the question.
From the studio that brought you Shakespeare in Love.
I want to just sit and not be the center of everything all the time. You know what that's like.
No, I don't.
Neither do I.
Take a journey to paradise.
Buongiorno. I suppose you realize we've got to heaven.
Sometimes a change of scenery can change everything.
It's this place. It's a tub of love.
Enchanted April.
It was interesting. Like it felt idiosyncratic. It had its own feel. So that was kind of cool. But not, it's like, I would be like, have a glass of wine, relax, and sort of escape with the movie. It did leave an impression. And also, I'm so curious as to what Christopher loved about it too, because, my husband watched it for like 5 minutes. He's like, no, not my genre. So it's good. It's a really good find though. So I do recommend it for people who like those sort of movies that take you away and have interesting characters and well acted. I'm going to give it. I'm going to give it 6.5.
Oh,
yeah.
No.
6.5. It was all done well, and the writing was very good. But I wanted to feel more, so I could just be a sucker for more evocativeness. It was just the right amount. It was like the nice cousin coming to dinner who you have a good chat with, but then you kind of forget about after they leave.
Interesting. I'm going to be a little more generous this week.
I usually go higher than you.
I know you're usually the generous one. So I'm actually going with 8 because it stirred something in me, and it sort of, I liked the underlying message of several of them, and so, and I enjoyed the performances so much, and it did take me away. So I'm giving it an 8 golden apples. How's
I
that?
think
How's them apples?
movies like this too are a lot of the impact can be set in setting or how you're feeling when you're watching it, right? So give an idea of how much you need to be taken away, or just that longing. I definitely want to go to Italy. That did that for me for sure. I'm like, oh, remember
We're going.
travel? Remember those days before the pandemic? But let's bring Christopher on. And
Yes. Oh, let me tell you a little bit about him as he approaches. Hello, Mr. Logan, sir. Christopher Logan credits dying repeatedly on the screen with making him truly understand what makes a character live. In 2020, he has won 9 awards for films he's produced and directed, and won Best Screenplay Awards for writing Kiri and the Dead Girl, which won a $100,000 grant from the Canadian Council for the Arts. He is developing an old school horror flick, a residential school ghost story, and an Indigenous science fiction series. Please welcome my friend, Christopher Logan.
Hi, Erin. Hi, Gilly. Very nice to see you both.
Hello. Oh, wait, sorry, I have to say this. He's also an author and has several books. This one, I have yet to have the pleasure of reading it because I've been so busy. Daphne, the penguin who wanted to fly. And my favorite, Drag, which is not so much a written, oh, of course, the page that I open it to is black. How typical.
it's like all image. Are you the photographer for this?
No, it's a compendium of the top drag photographers and fashion photographers around the world and the top drag queens from around the world, whether they were at the start of their career on RuPaul's Drag Race, or people like Coco Peru, who's been around for many years, or Lady Bunny, who started Wigstock and was a big pioneer in the AIDS and the gay rights movement. Yeah, it was a beautiful piece to put together, but it was sourcing mostly a lot of shots that were already put together and then going to the photographers to unearth some things that hadn't been seen by other people yet.
So you just sort of pitched the idea of bringing it all together into this one great book. Is that what was the?
Yeah, it was. I actually wrote a movie on drag, and then this was supposed to be the fundraiser to raise the money to kickstart that. This was sort of our Kickstarter, I guess.
How did it work? Did it work out? It looks amazing?
Well, the book worked out very well, and we won a lot of awards. The best was Michael Musto from the Village Voice in New York put it on a top 10 list for the year, which I thought was amazing. And that's a career highlight for me.
Wow.
But financially, it was an absolute unmitigated disaster.
Really? Why?
Yeah, just I not knowing the book industry and not knowing how badly things were going, and you're diving in and how much you have to sell to make something work. And I did fall into that zone of the first publisher was in Britain, sorry, in Belgium, and ended up was just on the cusp of bankruptcy at the time, and they fell under. And then I ended up borrowing a lot of money and reproducing the book myself and going through the same channels and doing it again, thinking everything would work out, and then falling into the same issues where none of the bookstores were paying. And you'd sell the books and people would get the books and the bookstores would get the money, but it would never come through to you, because along the way there was somebody who would fall under, or someone who had bad credit, or someone who would lose something, or a bookstore was closing, or a distributor was closing, and everything just got crazy. So it was just a whirlwind of knowledge and education.
Wow. That sounds like you could write a book on the experience of making the book.
I've thought about it every now and then, writing something called The Weight of Books, but it's too miserable. But I'm very proud of the book and the book itself. It took a while to get back to that point and to get out of the, oh my God, what happened?
So let's talk about something happy then, like the movie that you chose for us. Tell us why it was your pick.
To be honest, it's a go-to for me. Whenever I'm feeling disenchanted with the industry, or I've watched something where I get disappointed in the ending, I go back to comfort food. I go back to things that I know that I'm going to like how this ends, especially when I'm writing a project. I don't want to be disappointed in my industry while I'm writing a project. I need to believe in the impossible and believe in beauty and believe in things being finely tuned and well finished and well thought out. And the details in Enchanted April are so beautiful and so simple that it's an elegant story simply told. There's really nothing that happens in the movie. It's seriously watching people go on a vacation where they sit around in a house. And to be honest, it's entertaining because they're interesting, because you see them as people in every little flawed piece of themselves. Tiny little moments that are not overblown or anything. Little tiny things that are just well choreographed that bring a story to life and let you know who they are.
Very well.
That's so true, and it's so well said. It's lovely.
It was lovely to listen to you both. Well, one, I'm thrilled that I got to introduce you both to the film, that you didn't know it before. That's always a thrill, to bring a story to someone's life. I'm glad you both enjoyed it somewhat. I do find that it is one of those things that it is like the tone of when you watch something. It is a perfect Sunday rainy day movie when you're stuck in the house and nowhere to do and you want to melt into the couch kind of thing. It's that kind of thing where it feels lush at the moment, but when it's over, it's over. It doesn't linger like water cooler talk or a blockbuster.
Yes, true.
That's well described. And everyone, you know, throughout their weeks in their lives when you're feeling sick or feeling like you need something, everyone's always looking for that. Give me the good comfort maybe that I can throw on tonight. So it has to go into that repertoire. I totally agree. This would be easy to recommend for someone, and knowing that the likelihood that they'll like some aspect of it or just enjoy it or not walk away disappointed that they watched it is very, very high compared to the other movies which we've been watching, which are highly controversial and easy to like love or hate. So Enchanted April's in there. Have you seen the movie Youth at all?
No, I don't think so. What's that?
Alan, it's in Italy, it's set as well. It just reminded me of it. It wasn't, again, it's just more character driven, and you're watching these moments and just something just grabs you in those elements. And I agree. I like that in Enchanted April, you thought maybe there was going to be some drama, and they kind of brought you up to the edge, and then you're pleasantly sort of led to, you know, it's not what you would expect, or it's not typical in
I know, like even in the way you're saying it, you want to lead up to the word catharsis, but it doesn't actually happen, right? You want to add the big moment, there's no real climax. It just goes along because it's a slice of life kind of piece. Some lovely use of language that is a beautiful thing as a screenwriter, to remind yourself that things can be done simply and well, and you don't have to constantly tell people everything. You know, they're going to be watching it while they're seeing it, while they're listening to it, while they're hearing it, while they're experiencing it. So you don't have to put everything in the dialogue. When Lottie tells her husband that she's going on vacation and they sort of have a bit of a row, he chases her through the house and he hits his head on the pots and pans. And he's going through slapstick and farce at the same time as she's going through a real emotional moment. And these different genres of film are playing at the exact same time because everyone is committed to the tiny moment that's happening and not making anything big out of it.
Very cool. I like it when you break it down like that. That just adds a whole other layer. I'm just thinking back to all the times they had that sort of interplay. So what you mentioned is something I struggle with quite a bit, or I work with in my own writing, is I'm very dialogue heavy, and I'm just like on the show. So what did it take for you to get to a place in your own writing that you were, what's your process around like what to cut out, how to trim it? Do you just sort of put it all on the page and then go back, or are you already
I started as an actor, so I'm dialogue heavy to begin with. I see it from the character's point of view to begin with, and I write that first. And it generally tends to be incredibly dialogue heavy, but I specifically do a pass to make it more cinematic and to make sure that I break things up. I will go into a script and seriously not have more than 2 or 3 lines of dialogue without an action, just to break it up and stuff. And then I'll wait a few days and go back and then read it to see if that makes sense. Because you want the page with actions and dialogue to read at the same pace that it'll film at. You know, so it's basically like a character will say, "I don't care if you love me or not. I just want you to stay." He puts his hands through his hair. Da 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 da. You know, like just so you have the pace and the rhythm going, but you have something cinematic happening on screen at the same time as the dialogue is happening. And that, when you reread that, you'll see what's right of it, what's wrong of it, what works, what needs to be said, what's important to put back in, what's good that you cut out, that kind of thing. But I start from a very dialogue heavy place too.
So the process really is about doing dialogue heavy and then creating the pace as you know it, and then leaving it and coming back to be able to sort of take it in as a holistic when you're not sort of in it, writing it, right? And then sort of you're saying that it's at that stage on the third pass that you start to feel what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, I'd say the first draft, I've probably ruminated about it for about 6 months, like bits and pieces of the script and bits. I've probably written tiny bits and tiny pieces, but then I'll sit down for a full weekend, coffeed out of my brain, not sleep, and just bang out a full first draft. That is just because I happen to be feeling the right way that day. You know, and it's just getting the right feeling on the page, because the feeling you get on the page the first time is never going to leave the script, in my opinion. You will fix and correct a whole bunch of things, but you are stuck with what you put on the page the first time. As far as the feeling, you can change the reactions of people, you can change how things happen, all that stuff. But if you're angry when you wrote it, it's angry on the page. If you're sad when you wrote it, it's going to have a touch of melancholy in it. And if you're in the right mood and you set the right tone, write that all out, and then you can rejigger the pieces afterwards a little bit, or rejenga them.
I like it. So what are you working on right now? Share if you can, or if you want to.
I'm just wrapping up a rewrite on a feature called Chalk. I mean, we did as you said, we had a $100,000 grant from the Canada Council to do the story of this Clicket artist, Kira Geen, who is my producing partner with Moon Children Films. I wrote a short film based on her life and how she reconnected to her Indigenous heritage after being adopted by a Scottish family. We told it as a fairy tale that happens to a 6-year-old girl who is missing her mother who passed away, who's Clicket, and is raised by the white father who doesn't understand what she's going through. And through following symbols, signs, and shadows, she goes back to finding out who she is and reconnects with her mother, because even through death, she's still there. So it's a beautiful little story, and we're thrilled with how it's going. We're right in the end of sound design and some of the visual effects right now, and it's going to be ready by the end of this month. So I'm like nervous and thrilled and all this stuff. And we were lucky enough to have Grace Dove, who is an actress, Indigenous actress of note, who played Leonardo DiCaprio's wife in The Revenant. She came on, and it's her first directorial debut. So that's been lovely. But after working with Grace, we connect very well. We like the same type of positive, uplifting things. She has a different viewpoint on things, where she believes it needs to be anchored a little more in real life, and I like the fantasy. I write very positive, uplifting things because I don't come from a very traumatic background. I'm very blessed that way, and I'm privileged and blessed that way, and I don't ever want to short shift it or take anything away from anybody. But I didn't have a bad childhood, and I don't have anything that really went that horribly wrong or anything. So I write these really positive things that I think are possible. And then I thought this story, Chalk, I wrote about a 6-year-old boy ghost who haunts an orphanage at Old Montreal. And the only reason the kids can see him is that when he comes to the blackboard, the chalk sticks to his face. Was a charming little tale about these ghosts. These kids want to find out who the ghost is and help him find his way. And they get past who they are in the class war that's happening in the school and end up coming together as a group to help the ghost find out who he is. And so I love that story, but I thought Grace would be a wonderful person to direct it, because she got the heart of Kiri and the Dead Girl. And it was the same sort of touching human little tiny moments of identity in there. And she had this thought of, well, you know, if I wanted to direct this, I think it might be interesting to explore having this set in a residential school. And I kind of bristled for a little bit at that, because I was like, that's not always my story to tell, shall we say. But I said, well, tell me your ideas on this. And we talked for a good 2.5 hours. She told me what she thought, what she didn't, what's good, what's bad about the story. And I've spent the last month doing a rewrite of it, where I found a sweet spot where I'm not writing it in that system, but there are references and characters who have experienced that in the story. And the ghost is there to protect them from the teachers. And so there's a little moment when there's a little girl who is Whoopi Goldberg from Ghost at 8 years old. The psychic who can hear ghosts but can't see them. At 8 years old comes to school, and she starts noticing things. She starts noticing that the kids are being protected from this one teacher who came out of the residential school system. And what I'm doing is I'm sending it off to Grace, and if she likes it, then she'll be developing it with me. And that's what I'm excited about at the moment. Sorry, that was a big ramble.
That was great. fascinating stories. Both of them, so many visuals come in when you talk about it. It's always a good indication of a great story, I think, is when my mind gets flooded with. I can see that, especially the chalk on the face.
Yeah, I love that. Comes from a racial thing for me, because I used to be the kid who helped out with the teacher and people pleaser, and I'd be out like banging the erasers and stuff like that. And then when I came back in, I remember some kid always making fun of me because you could see the yellow chalk dust against my skin and stuff like that. And I was always like self-conscious about it afterwards. So that it's interesting how these real moments become fantasy. You know, that's what I mean by I write fantasy. I'll see like like with the book Daphne, you'll see a romantic storyline, and I'll write it happening to a wolf and a bear who's teaching someone how to fly. Whereas somebody else will write it as a romantic comedy. Do you know? Like, so I'm always adding the fantasy element. I think if Grace wants to develop this with me, she brings an anchor to this realistic world. And she says that it's great that you write the stuff that you come from a non-traumatic place, but the people that need to hear it are in that place, and we need to connect that to them so that they can hear how there can be a positive outcome. So it's going to be an interesting process, but yeah.
It sounds exciting. And yeah, we'll have to, once you get a little further down, come back and talk to us and tell us how it goes.
Yeah, I'd love to, actually.
You raise a really interesting point that I think affects a lot of writers, or is a question for them, is this question of, do we need to go through trauma? Do we need to go through deep personal pain to be able to write about it in a way that connects with an audience? And, you know, there's also the question of whose story, you know, which stories are ours to tell as well. And, you know, there should be no reason that someone who is extremely creative and prolific and able to write like yourself, it shouldn't be necessary that you had to have, you know, some deep issue happen to you to be able to produce that for people. Yeah. But and it's clearly it's not, because you're creating great things. So then the question is, well, where does that come from then, that capacity to write and to connect to the humanity of other people? If it doesn't have to be experience, what is that? You know, how do you find that? How do you channel that through your writing?
Well, I come at this from an acting standpoint to begin with, like I said. So to me, it's always about story, and I agree with you that you should be able to write anything. But then there's a process, again, when you're rewriting it, where you have to write something respectfully for the people that are actually going to be doing it and who it's going to affect. For me, a huge thing is knowing who your audience is, because you have to know who your audience is, otherwise you're speaking in the wrong language. Like, you could be writing a piece that could touch a lot of Spanish people, but you've written it in English, so they're never going to hear it. You know, that's sort of in a broader way, that's sort of it. When I wrote that Daphne book, that was a gift for a friend who was 26 years old, who was a dancer, who needed to learn to let go of the rules, that you can be 26 and still find a way to dance and enjoy yourself. He was going on and doing office work and seriously just hating his life because he was being told that he was too old to be a dancer, and he just was trying to do what he was supposed to be doing. So we wrote this little tale about a penguin who doesn't believe she can't fly, because she won't believe in the rules, and she won't believe she's constricted by the things that other people tell her that she is. And it became this beautiful little story in how to let the impossible into your life. And the reason I was able to write that clearly for him is because I was only speaking to him. I was writing it for him as a birthday gift. And then we did it as a print on demand thing for him. And then he gave it to a few friends, and a couple people wanted to order it. So I made it available online, and it kind of ballooned from then. And then it sold like 3,000 or 4,000 copies, and it's taught at a school in the Lower Mainland. And it became quite good. But the point was, like, knowing your audience as a writer is key, because otherwise you're writing something, like you were saying, you should be able to write anything, but if you're writing only your own experience and you haven't connected it to who needs to hear it, you're writing something that you would love to hear and that you would love to see, and you have to hope that there's enough of you out there to see it, right? As opposed to pinpointing who needs to hear it.
And are you relating that to acting, as in when so say you're acting a role that you've never experienced in life, but you're creating the emotion, the content, that you're acting it to the person in front of you rather than just expressing it? Is that how you're relating the writing?
Oh, with the acting thing, it's different, because for the acting thing, you need to know that's more of, with acting, it's sort of the medium, who your audience is. You need to know if you're doing theater, because you're filling a room with your size and your voice and everything, or you're doing television, where it's all a little more constrained because the camera's coming to you and zooming in and stuff, or you're doing a feature film where your eye is like 5 feet wide. So the second before the second before the second before you cry is enough. You know, you have to know the scope of who you're talking to and how they're seeing it. And there's very few people I find these days who naturally do that. Some people do. I have a friend, Lana Carter, an actress who worked in a film I directed years ago, who actually reminds me of you, Jilly. You remind me of her. She's one of my favorite people in the world, but you have a similar look. And the thing I noticed when I was directing her, I was doing some camera work with her too, is she just naturally filled the frame when you expanded it. She just naturally, like, she could feel when the frame got bigger. You know, like she was very aware of the energy in the room and what was happening. And it's a very rare thing. But for most people, you just have to have the information as an actor, to have the information of this is for television, this is for film, this is a farce, how broad is this, to understand who the audience is. And it's mostly up to the director to be pulling all the pieces together for the right audience. But it does help to have that sort of information to know who you're talking to and how big to be.
Best interview ever.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's sort of like when we were talking about screenwriting with Enchanted April, it's how all the things are so small. There's such small little moments between people because the camera is zooming in on things while the sound is coming up, while she sticks her walking stick into the ground. So you don't need this big dramatic thing. She just casually does it because everything else is also there and it makes it all grand together. So it's knowing that's what that film does for me. It reminds me to write simple, small moments because everyone else is also going to bring parts of it together.
Yeah, that's so true. And yeah, and that's, I think, what made it so magical for me. I mean, I don't want to, if somebody out there is like us and hadn't had an opportunity to hear of it or enjoy it yet, even just that last scene where the final moment with her walking stick, wink, so magical, and it was just so lovely and perfect. And
I love that you thought it was magical. I love that you felt it.
of course I did. Yeah, it was lovely, and yeah, it was lovely. See, it made me happy today. So I would love to know, do you have any wonderful stories to share with us, either about screenwriting or film industry? I've had the pleasure of being on set with you, but that was a nice set. So I don't know, maybe you have something else to share.
I'm not sure. I always say that the thing I love about the film industry is the person next to you is doing a completely different job that you can't do. Like someone's doing lighting, someone else is doing makeup, someone's directing, someone's the key grips, and they're doing, or camera operator. Everyone is so well skilled at what they're doing to such a degree that everybody around them is fascinated by how well they do this, that there's such a level of respect when it's working well, right? So I love that kind of aspect. But it also, the other thing about the film industry I love is you're usually doing the most glorious thing in the world while you're having your ass handed to you. Like, I remember I did a guest star as an actor on The X-Files. And of course, I'm lying naked on a slab for an autopsy scene after my character's dead. And the director, Jim Wong, says, do you mind if we pull the sheet down? We want to see the bone of your hip in the beginning of the shot. Oh, okay. And I jump up and take my shorts off. And then Gillian Anderson walks in. And I'm like, oh, that's a lovely way to meet you. We go back and do the scene. And then afterwards, I'm sitting beside her and she's texting somebody. And this woman comes up and she says, oh my God, Chris, I didn't know you got the part until I saw the autopsy dummy of you. And this was a woman that I had met the day I had auditioned for the show. And she overheard me talking about the X-Files. She said, oh, I work on that show. And we got massively drunk together at one of the gay bars downtown in Vancouver. It was phenomenal. But she said, I just got asked to leave the set because I was walking with the autopsy dummy and they usually put a towel on the face of the fake dummy just so it doesn't freak anybody out. And the towel fell off and she recognized me and threw it across the room. She screamed, right? And then she's coming up to me going, oh my God, that's how I found out you got the part. And then Gillian Anderson is beside me and she goes, wait a minute, you guys know each other? And I said, oh, I'm sorry, Gillian. Gillian, this is Piper. Piper, this is Gillian. And then Gillian goes, no, Chris, I know, this is my daughter.
Oh,
yeah. So just that's what the film industry is to me. The extremes are always happening at the same time because you're creating art and having this beautiful, wonderful, existential, beautiful moment, and oh my God, at the same time, all these weird things that you can't explain are happening.
Was it an anatomically correct, like, dummy of you?
It was just from the waist up, to be honest. I got body casts at the Creature Shop downtown, which is a creepy experience. And it was, Sorry?
Did you get to keep it afterwards?
They actually offered it to me. I was offered it and I said, no, I never want to see that thing again. It's so disturbing. It's so completely disturbing.
I
Yeah.
want one.
I remember being in the makeup trailer and they were coloring the skin of it and stuff. And so I'm sitting in the makeup trailer and they're checking on, do you mind if we check something? Sure. And they're looking at me and doing the right skin tones. And they're like, oh, he has a mole on his neck. Let's add that. Oh, his nipple is a little browner than purple. Let's add that. They're like, oh, he has some spots on the back of his neck. Should we add those? Oh, one of the hairs on his chest is longer than the other. So they come over and put that. And I'm sitting there going, oh my God. Right. And then right when the best time on the film industry set for everybody is usually 3 hours after you start, you get a sandwich, right? 3 hours in, they come in with sandwiches. So you have a cold cut sandwich and I'm about to take a bite. I can't look at the dummy that's next to me at all. So I'm always looking at it in the makeup mirror, through the makeup mirror. And as I look at it, they popped the head open and all the brains spilled out as I was taking a bite of this meaty sandwich. I've never felt so disgusted in my life. It was just the most surreal. Oh, and then you can't say anything about it too, because you're laughing and feeling gross and stupid. And oh my God, I took a bite out of myself. And, yeah, it's just, yeah, it was nasty.
It was real. What a great story.
It's nasty.
That was wonderful. And I hadn't heard that story yet. That was a good one. Well, thank you so much, Christopher Logan. You are always a treat to talk to. And I'm so happy that you were able to come on our show.
No, thanks, Erin. It's been lovely chatting with you both. I'm happy to come back anytime to talk about anything. And I hope it's been good for you guys. I'm fairly on the newer road of screenwriting and getting my feet in the door and doing things at the moment, but I have a grand respect for it. And I'm actively doing the work to make sure that I'm putting things out in the world that are positive, reflective of my views on the world, and help people get where they need to go.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And yeah, we will take you up on that offer.
Lovely.
To have you come back.
Val will be right back.
Nothing can ever change
He's going to the store.
the way I feel about you.
Amore mio, here's a hug.
I promise I will stay forever close to you.
It happens to the best of us.
Funny how you can
Here's some love for you.
open up. We go together. It's all I know, side by side.
What? Ain't my problem? Coglione! Bastardo! Coglione! Muori! Devi morire! Pezzo di merda! Vai, vai! Sorry if I scared you.
It's okay.
We go together.
No, 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 no. Amore, non morire, dai. Non morire.